So I finished watching the 8th episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, that being the episode Under the Cloak of War. So this is actually an interesting episode because it might actually be the darkest episode of Strange New Worlds so far, but the main plot of the episode revolves about the Enterprise playing host to a Klingon defector who's now an ambassador for the Federation. So in many ways, it kind of reminds me a little bit of future developments between Klingon Federation relations, but at the same time, there's that undertone of the current hostilities, especially among those who lived through the Klingon Federation war that was mentioned, that occurred in Star Trek Discovery, I think it was. But regardless, like, dealing with lots of the people's complicated feelings and how war never really leaves them, and how only those who experience the similar stuff as them can deal with it. So basically, there's a lot of hostilities to the Klingon ambassador, who's not only considered basically he's basically considered that he killed a bunch of Federation citizens as a general, but then he also killed his own men. Of course, as we find out later, he didn't kill them, but I do wonder, did he think himself still responsible for their deaths? Because this is getting into spoilers, but it was actually Dr. Mbenga who killed those Klingons that the ambassador took credit for. But at the same time, I do wonder, in his own Klingon way, did he feel responsible that he was a coward and he ran while they covered his retreat, and maybe he felt responsible that way? That would have been very neat if they explored, but they didn't. That's because this episode was more exploring about the effects of war on the main character I was saying this was Dr. Mbenga, but a little bit also on Chapel, and a tiny little bit on Ortegas, being those three main characters altogether who served during the Klingon Federation war and experienced combat, or experienced warlike conditions, because Mbenga and Chapel were both assigned to basically a field hospital. And I gotta say, it's kind of funny, funny in the ironic sense. Nurse Chapel arrives there, and she finds out she's now the head nurse because she has the most experience of everyone there, and she just arrived. Crazy. But I got a little bit with that stuff of MASH vibes, not too much. Definitely some of the more darker episodes that really drove more into war and combat and death and all that. A little bit more, not as much, but a little bit, just that hint of it, and it makes me want... I would love a Star Trek medical show that deals with more complicated stuff. And maybe, yes, set it during conflict, that's okay. MASH did it, it's proven successful, and outside of combat also, or outside of, battles and that, the medical shows also work. But regardless, it gave me a little bit of touch. You got triage, you gotta make tough choices on who to save, who not to save. You have a constant threat of enemy attack. Like, there is some similarities there. Probably a lot of surface level, but some. Living in tents even, like, just ever so dealing with triage, like, those just minor little stuff there just created the atmosphere for me. But of course, the main point of this episode was really showing that with those three characters, especially Mbenga, what they did, what they experienced during the war never left them and still affects them to this day. And honestly, I feel like there's parts of the episode that's still lingering, stuff that still needs to be said, but at the same time, maybe that's the point. There was so much about the experience of war that people like me who have only experienced it through the realm of video games and history textbooks, which do not do it justice. That much I do know. So maybe that's lacking something, like even someone who has studied war maybe a bit more than the average person, being a history buff and all that. Sure, I know a little bit, but I do know there's a lot of experience that I've never experienced. So perhaps by having that little bit lacking is their attempt to explain to us, the audience, that there is something about war that you can just never properly explain away. I don't know, but those are kind of just my general thoughts on this episode. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Oh, should I also even mention what happened at the end of the episode? I don't know, because I think I'm going to leave it broad, because I already talked about what I really want to talk about, and that being the message of this episode, what this episode I think is trying to say about war and its effect on people. But that is what I'm going to leave you today, so thank you for watching, and live long and prosper. Thank you for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to like, upvote, and share the video,
Also consider subscribing and following the channel if you haven't done so yet, and to ring that bell on YouTube to get notified of when new videos release. The link tree in the description links to all my social media. Check it out if you are interested, and once again, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you always.